Donald Trump spent 4 years as a fake president of the United States. He lost the popular vote. I mean, let's just get that up front. And he spent plus a year campaigning. And as Jennifer Rubin points out, he was cozying up to and helping further the aims, the geopolitical aims of the fascist Russian President Vladimir Putin. And I think we pointed this out before, and I know you know this, but had Putin handpicked an agent to be president of the United States, he couldn't have gotten better results than what he got with this filthy pig Trump. In fact, you might say that Trump exceeded any expectations that Putin might have had because of how Trump tried to dismantle NATO. He did with his shitty, disparaging remarks, insulting the leaders of our allies, insulting the leaders of the countries that are our allies, which is one of the first things the Orange Vomit did. The way he extorted Ukraine by holding back military aid that they were already entitled to, by leaving Russia's meddling in the election that got this piece of shit elected unpunished, the way Trump invited Putin back into the group of seven and attacking our own intelligence community. And to this day, the Orange Vomit, he did it over the weekend at this circle jerk called CPAC convention. I'll get to that in a minute. But to this day, the Orange Vomit continues to praise Putin, calls him smart, and continues to denigrate the United States, calls us dumb. And this fucker wants to be president again? Yeah, of course he does. If you remember, and very few of us do, neither do I, but back in 2012, Mitt Romney was a presidential candidate running against Obama. And he was ridiculed for identifying Russia as our primary international foe. Now, it was not obvious at the time, a decade ago. So Romney was premature, but you have to say he was prescient that it would turn out like this. I hate to dig up. I had hoped that these coals from the Cold War were being smothered under. I realize Putin is an oligarch. He's a fascist. He's a Christian fascist. He's out of his fucking mind. But I had hoped after 60, 70 long years of the Cold War that it had finally stopped. And I was mistaken. Romney apparently knew better. So on Sunday, yesterday, Romney called out Putin's admirers in the Republican Party. That's how Romney still identifies the fascist Christian Party as the Republican Party. But Romney called them out as, quote, almost treasonous, end quote. Now, he's talking about members of the United States Senate and the House. He calls them almost treasonous. That's really a statement about members of your own party. Almost treasonous. And of course, when he said that, he was putting out there an uncomfortable truth, and that is the Putin apologists in the fascist Christian cult in this country include also the loudest and most disgusting supporters of Donald Trump. Rubin says this, let me quote her directly. The divisions within the GOP are stark and becoming unsustainable. In the first group are a tiny handful of Republicans who opposed Trump, supported his impeachment, at least the second one, condemned his assaults on the NATO alliance, and denounced his Putin worship. Other than Romney, Representative Liz Cheney has remained a constant defender of democracy and opponent of Trump and Putin. And Cheney has been merciless when it comes to their apologists. She has said, she tweeted on Friday, quote, as Russian forces invade Ukraine, Russian TV features Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, and Tucker Carlson praising Putin, end quote. Putin is evil. Every American watching what's happening in Ukraine should know that. End quote. That's what Liz Cheney tweeted on Friday. But think about this. That's the end of the quote. Think about this, Truth Seeker. A former U.S. Secretary of State, this scummy son of a bitch, Mike Pompeo, who likes to walk around with his ass hanging out talking about he graduated #1 from West Point. Fucking West Point ought to take back whatever certificates they gave him when this dirty traitorous dog graduated. This is incredible. I don't expect anything from Tucker Carlson. He's just a lump of shit who found his way from CNN onto the Fox propaganda channel. And as far as Trump wants to be Putin. Trump would hand over his wife and children if he could be Putin. Jesus. Anyway, also on Sunday on Face the Nation, Liz Cheney said that we have seen what she called impressive progress with sanctions on Russia. And she offered a lot of praise for the unity of the alliance against him, like I mentioned a minute ago. And she made some constructive suggestions for further sanctions, for example, freezing out the Russian central bank and sanctioning oligarchs' families, which has now happened. I mean, this is just Monday. She said this yesterday. Switzerland has decided, the country that has been neutral, the little gnomes of Switzerland who have always remained neutral so that the people who profit from war can continue to make their profit. Switzerland today said enough of this shit. And they are icing out Russia from any kind of flow through the Swiss banks, which is astonishing. Now, what is noteworthy is that Romney and Cheney both avoid any anti-Biden gibberish. So many of these right-wing Christian fascists, they will condemn Putin, and in the same breath, they'll have some snarky comment about Biden. That's a cheap way for these fascist Christians to appear pro-Trump and pro-MAGA by implication, but at risk of once more undercutting democracies and weakening a united front against Putin. I mean, these people in the U.S. Congress, these Putin apologists, these Christian fascists, this is just a fucking disgrace. Now, we've seen this before. We saw it in the 30s in this country. There was a huge number of American industrialists and American public figures who publicly supported Adolf Hitler. Supported a killer who was about to launch death and destruction that would take up to 100 million lives on the planet, not to mention the 6 million Jews who were systematically, consciously, deliberately murdered. And we had Americans, Henry Ford, Charles Lindbergh, E.I. DuPont, the George Herbert Walker Bush's grandfather or father, I don't know, what was his name? Prescott Bush. These were Nazis in America. And now we have a fresh generation of these fuckers. Josh Hawley, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Donald Trump, Tom Cotton. It just goes on and on and on. What is it about fascism that we can't uproot it from this country anyway and just burn it out so that it never comes back? So, as Rubin points out, that's the first group. The second group of so-called Republicans, these are the cowardly and incoherent latecomers to Ukraine's side. They, as Rubin points out, they want us to forget Trump's appeasement and his unabated flattery for Putin, both of which these devils, these late-to-the-party pro-Ukrainian American legislators, they celebrated, they countenanced Trump's appeasement and unabated flattery for Putin. You have House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, to this crazy bitch from New York, Elise Stefanik, up to and including the entire Republican Party apparatus, which keeps up a constant stream of juvenile bullshit insults directed at Biden. Oh, God. And this largest group of Republicans is now vilifying Biden for being too weak. For being too weak. Of course they're going to say that. They had a cowardly lump of orange vomit at the head of their party. Still do. And scum suckers like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the rest of these pigs. And they vilify Biden for being too weak? Even though he's presented this unified and tremendous response from the West that has succeeded now in making Putin a global pariah, with perhaps one exception. That would be Xi Jinping of China. Because Xi Jinping has his eye on Taiwan, the same way Putin had his bloody eyes on Crimea and, well, actually on Ukraine. But these were the Americans who suggested there was nothing wrong with Trump's phone call in 2019 trying to extort the Ukrainian President Zelensky just to dig up dirt. Was that what it was on the Biden family? And Zelensky now is a national hero in that country and globally, I would say, and an international symbol of courage, while these scum fucking little bastards in our House and Senate are finally shown for the bleating, nasty-ass little cowards that they are. Oh, my God. And one of them is this hideous senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton, he of the gigantic Adam's apple, right? George Stephanopoulos had him on Sunday's ABC program this week, and he tried to get an answer out of Tom Cotton. Stephanopoulos said, quote, "Why can't you condemn Trump for these comments?" And when there was no answer, Stephanopoulos went on, quote, "You're a senior member of the Republican Party. Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. When Fox News asked him if he had a message for Putin, he said he has no message," end quote. And this Ichabod Crane asshole Tom Cotton never answered. And he refused on the same program to rule out supporting Trump in 2024. And Stephanopoulos, of course, was just utterly frustrated. If you saw this, you know what I'm talking about. He said this, quote, "I simply don't understand why you can't condemn his praise of Vladimir Putin," end quote. Tom Cotton is a tall, skinny, spineless little bastard who is terrified of breaking with Donald Trump because Tom Cotton is a fascist Christian also. And he's going to hide under the orange vomit's wings, or he thinks he's going to. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com. And never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.